Afternoon, everyone.
Hi,
So,
Chris.
hi, everyone. So, I've only seen everybody via email, and I've been popping in and out of the conference today, just in between this and work. So, I just want to just acknowledge and say thank you for everybody who agreed, right, in such quick turnaround to actually be panelists and discussants and all of that, to bring all of your brilliance and activism and everything to this conversation, which is going to be a lively one. I have been part of my challenge today was I just started a new position, and given the recent murder of Mr. Floyd, I've had to facilitate racial healing conversations, right, for the last few days and also into next week. And so it's well, we are again. So this, I heard part of your discussion, the emotional labor of what it means for Black people to have to respond to oftentimes what it means for the world to be a just one. Quite frankly, it's one that can be very difficult and exhausting. But in light of that spirit, I want to just again acknowledge and give kudos to everyone. Before we begin to open it up for discussion, and Amber's going to feature the questions in a minute, I want to offer up just a few group agreements if we can, right, as a part of this process, because right, one of the things that we will have to do if we need to is to mute people, to be honest with you. And so we'll say that up front, that we want to make sure that we not that our opinions are reduced or diminished in any way, but that we allow for as much space as possible for everybody on the call to speak and to be engaged. So with that, be present as much as you can. Be intentional with your words. All right. So think about it before you say it, right, or not. But understand that it all has impact. Assume best intentions, right, unless that we have reason to believe that they aren't, and then we, of course, this group will certainly respond in that way. Take space, make space. If you're a person who likes to talk and likes to take up lots of room, quite frankly, then we want you to actually make space for others. Similarly, if you're a person who does not take up space in settings, we want you to actually move forward and take more space. Use I statements, right? So I was just heard some comments right as I was getting on the last discussion about making, painting communities, people, anybody with broad brushes. What is said here, right? As much as we can contain a space, right, will remain here. What is learned here, as we all are educators, scholars, and community activists in many ways, we take it away and we use it, right? And then, of course, reminder that as facilitators, we will move the conversation along. We have about an hour, and we want to be able to get to folks' comments. And so, just if you can't remember that, then we will be the internal governor for you and support that and move it along for you, right? And so, with that, Amber, you want to start with the first question, and then I'll go to the chat box and see if there are questions there, or people want to raise their hands, and then we'll go from there. And we'll do our best to manage between the chat box, actual hands, and then the palm from the chat box. Somebody just asked if I could run for president, and the answer is no.
All right. All right, so we can get started with the first question. Is everyone able to see my screen okay? So given the systematic racialized violence that exists within the helping professions, including psychology, how can we work together to break ties with those tendencies and do our part to protect Black, Brown, Indigenous people of color's lives in this immediate situation?
So we can take questions or comments from any variety. So people can just unmute and start to speak. They can raise their hand in the chat box and we can call on you. Or, just yell out.
Don't be shy.
So I did hear, I will just add real quick. I heard somebody say yesterday on another call that racialized or race violence, police violence is really, quite frankly, a health pandemic, and they didn't use the word health pandemic, but it's a public health threat, is what they said, right? And that, right, and so in all the conversations I've been having this week, really having to broaden people's perspectives about what it means to actually create and attack root causes, right, and not just decide that one bad cop is all that needs to be rooted out, and that then changes that system. This conversation I did over here, the Judas, I think some people were talking about this notion of, or Erica, I think, mentioned about respectability, right, around in Black people, and what that looks like, right, in terms of how we have to negotiate and navigate through the world. And one of the things that I can say that I've repeated over and over again in these conversations, that inquiry, resistance, in whatever forms, is not a cause for death. Not a cause for death. And we have to, when we talk about defunding and dismantling and reorganizing and having cultural transformation, these are the things that we have to, these are the things we have to keep, we have to hold actually really, really high and very present, quite frankly. The tolerance of Black people to resist and to create what they feel like is for them, and not have that be destroyed because of the legacy of how Black people have been, how we have been surveilled and dehumanized for centuries. And so I'm just going to open it up for others.
Well, just because people aren't saying anything, I'm going to go ahead and jump in.
Thank you, Brad.
In community psychology, we focus way too much on, and we heard this, throughout the program. I think even Chris's and Raphael's group had a long conversation with me about this. We focus so much on this population or that population, and that it's re-traumatizing for people to have to listen, particularly to white professors tell the story and focus on these stories without focusing on assets, with making it sort of a unilateral story. And so, I think we need, part of decolonizing community psychology and academia and science and everything we do is white people need to work with other white people. I think, at least one strategy is for more of that and work on their own shit and try to find that prejudice within them and try to extract it. To think of it as a virus that needs to be retracted from our brains and to fight that hostility and oppression.
Thank you.
Chris, can I interject?
Absolutely, please.
I'm Celeste Jackson, NLU alum.
Hey, Celeste.
Hi, good to see you. I'm an auditor with the state of Illinois and also a psychotherapist at a private practice. I could not agree more, Brad. It's good to see you too. I could not agree more that there needs to be separate spaces for conversations to occur safely. As a Black woman, I am totally drained with having to re-expose myself and be vulnerable in spaces with people who don't know how to handle that vulnerability. I don't want to hear more apologies. I don't want to hear, I'm sorry you feel that way. I don't want to hear that must be a lot, because I know all those things. I don't need to hear it again from, someone else who has no idea about it. I think that deliberate spaces need to be created so that white people can work on the things that they need to before they approach and then re-traumatize and re-trigger someone who's experiencing this. Like I in my practice, which is an all-white female practice, and I'm the only Black clinician there, a colleague made a statement, and I feel comfortable sharing because she apologized, and I said that I would use this as a teaching point. But basically, she said that it feels like we've turned a new chapter. We've got this anti-racist agenda for our policies and procedures. And I'm like, this is a chapter for you, but this is the book of my life. Yeah. And for you to get this energy and this excitement about what do we do and why do we do it now? I've been doing this for so long. And for you to want me to meet you with that same level of drive is just like, how dare you, and people look to Black people and people of color in these all white spaces to be like, what do you think? I'm tired, I can only contribute so much. And it's just like, it's time for you intellectuals, you white people who have been doing this, who've had this position to start to garner, to get engaged all those tools and resources that you use to create these amazing systems. Yes. To do something different now. And I don't think that the burden of responsibility of all that needs to fall on Black and brown people right now. We're trying to heal. Like, we're trying to heal while continuing to be traumatized in this climate. And so I feel like absolutely separate spaces for these conversations to occur, holding one another accountable. I'm not with that talk anymore. So if you say this is what we're going to do, let's follow up. The momentum will die. That we know because we've been here before. So when this momentum dies, who's still going to be checking in? Who's still going to be saying, who's still going to be doing these things? I'm going to have these intentional dialogues and confront my racist family members. And I'm going to sit on these boards and see how we can help our students of color. You know, are these conversations going to continue while, you know, this memory of George Floyd, unfortunately, dissipates over time? So that accountability piece is also necessary.
And we're going to pivot to small. We're going to try. Thank you, Celeste. That was absolutely all that. Somebody just said all that part. I absolutely agree. We're going to pivot to small group breakout sessions and have these discussions and kind of move with these as guidance, or not. Others make, you know, other questions or other themes may emerge also. And before we do that, I want to just make a quick comment. I was watching James Baldwin's The I Am Not Your Negro documentary, actually, right before George Floyd was murdered. And one of the things that he said in one of his you know, his interviews, right, in the media interviews he did, he said, right, and I won't use it, but he said, I am not, well, it's the title is I'm Not Your Negro. But what he said in his interview, he said, I am not a nigger. I'm just gonna say it. I'm not. But you created that, right? And so the interrogation about why there was a need for that creation is up to white people to figure it out, right? Because we bear the brunt, quite frankly, of all of that in systematic racism, in individual acts of racism, in individual acts of terrorism. And I think that that is a framework for thinking about how to reshift, quite frankly, who needs to be doing the work and what that work needs to look like in terms of the actual goals. And I apologize for using that word because it certainly can be very traumatizing and triggering, but those are his words, right? And he said that as a way to shock the conscious, quite frankly, to shock the conscious, right? So let's think about moving to the chat rooms. I'm not sure how this is going to happen. We can ready to try it, and then we're going to talk in small groups. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to assign you all randomly.
Okay, all right.
So here we go.
Here we go. All right.
And then after the small group sessions, we'll return back to the main platform to have a discussion about what was talked about in your small groups.
Okay.
Okay.
So Brad just asked a really good question about do we have the, we're going to use it as guiding questions, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I'm in one.
One of the things that really stuck in my mind, they had recognized and they'd seen them around town before.
Hey, Erica, do you want to be assigned to a room? They're in the breakout rooms. I can't.
Oh, sorry. I was in with Verena, and it was a young woman from Japan.
Okay, let me see. Let me see how I can do this.
Or I can be assigned any other way.
Well, I can assign you to one that only has 3 people.
Okay,
Would you like to be with Judah?
sure.
Sure. Well, that didn't work. I've got to do it again.
Okay. And thank you for all this work, Jean.
Yeah, it's
Oh, they're back on.
oh, I'm just gonna pick it randomly. Pick one randomly here.
Okay, I'll join. It's 3. I'm
There
gonna
you
join.
go. LaShawn, do you want to be assigned to a breakout room?
I guess it's okay.
Okay, I'm going to.
think I kind of did it.
Everyone's in breakout rooms right now, but they're coming back in 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. I hope I did it correctly. I'm one of the performers. I was just testing it out. This is
Oh,
correct?
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this is fine. Yeah. So
All right,
that,
I'll leave the chat, then come back on when it's time. Thank you.
okay. All
Bye.
right. Bye-bye. Hi, Brad. So how did that work?
That was nice.
Good. A great discussion.
I think we got kicked out.
I'm going to mute
Yeah, we're back.
everyone, and then you'll have to unmute yourselves to speak.
So are there any different groups to breakouts that would like to open up and share on maybe the first question, if you tackled that? Feel free.
Yeah, I think people are still joining in from the other breakout sessions.
And we got confused on the question, so I don't know what's first, second, or third. We had a good conversation though, but we're not sure which conversation we had.
You had the one you need to have.
And we never got to 2 and 3.
We started with 3.
Thanks, Jerry. We only got on one question.
That was
and
all
that
we
was
did
it.
was one.
Well, if we're still waiting, I do want to say, we were just, as we were ending, we were talking about our young people stepping up and really appreciating that, and I'm really glad that they are, but I also have a little theory behind that too, because here in Chicago, when we had the issue around Laquan McDonald, I felt that our elders did not really appreciate the voice of our young people, and they were a little taken aback. And so my theory is that this pandemic has been holding our elders back because they are at high risk category. And so they cannot be really out there, you know, and they have to work in a different way because they cannot really be out there protesting in those walks.
Thank you, Jackie. Others?
So I think this is probably something we should open up, or that can be opened up to the larger space, and probably get some responses on, and they probably will be varied, and that's okay. But we talked about that first question that said, how do we come together, you know, Black, Brown, Indigenous people of color, and try to mitigate or eradicate the tendencies for the helping professions it was something around, I guess, to anybody got it right there offhand, so that I don't kill it, that first question about structural violence in the helping professions. Oh, Jean says, okay.
I have it.
Oh, cool. Okay, great.
Thank you.
You sending it?
Oh, Jean had it up. I thought, yeah, you were going to read it for us.
I can. I just sent it out on chat to everyone. So.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So question one was, given the systemic racialized violence that exists within the helping professions, including psychology, how can we work together to break ties with those tendencies and do our part to protect Black, Brown, Indigenous people of color's lives in the immediate situation?
Right. Yeah. And so we had a pretty in-depth discussion for the time that we had on that, because it was my position that before we can get to resolving issues like that within a discipline or within the helping professions, in this case, we have to look at the division between Black, Brown, and Asian American individuals. I added in there. Indigenous peoples probably a little less. That might be a little bit out of this discourse around the fact of being silent in issues such as this one that's going on, right? When we're talking racialized violence, police brutality, etc. And I think some Latinx population, Mexican Americans, etc., may agree with that. But Raphael brought up a good point too, as looking at the varied cultures within the Latinx population, Puerto Rican, right? You know, Mexican American, etc. And what does that look like primarily when the Latinx population or Latinx population are undergoing severe distraught in terms of being contained at the border and put in detention camps, etc. And I think, Raphael, correct me if I'm wrong, his point was where is the African American population?
Yeah,
in terms of solidarity with that issue. Raphael, correct me if I didn't get that right, please.
Yeah, no, you got it right, Terry. We were basically kind of looking at this and saying, you know, we haven't come together as people of color. And, you know, each group kind of has its own thing going on, and at the same time you don't see an outpouring of support from either group for the other groups. And because, I mean, when we talk about the indigenous population and the super high suicide rate and the super high, just the health disparities and that just dramatic social determinants that impact that population. So I feel like there's this kind of place where we didn't want to get into who suffered more, right? We wanted to get to the point where, okay, how do we have these conversations so we do come together?
I think it's important, like, tying all these different experiences together, because as we pointed out, like, each community is having a set of issues, but they're all tied. So I think about immigration. That's tied to police brutality as well, because who is ICE collaborating with? They're collaborating with police departments. Police departments are helping ICE do raids. So police violence doesn't just affect like Black people, it affects Latinx communities because of immigration and how often this is being streamlined into like another type of carceral system. Well, it is another type of carceral system already. And with indigenous groups, indigenous peoples, like, it's in the historical continuity of policing that this affects them, because it still affects them. We just don't hear about it because we have this whole view of the people who were here first as being like history. They don't exist no more, but they still do. And they still are disproportionately killed by police as well. So it's really like this. It's really the same issue, but like they're wearing different color uniforms. Like ICE, the police, the Indian catchers, the slave patrol. It's the same types of like carceral technologies, carceral logics, with just different types of uniforms. And like, yeah, we have to like band together because it is the same. Like, it is at the end of the day, like really issues that are rooted in colonialism, because these are all like colonial structures that we are dealing with the quote unquote afterlives of. But as we know, like, this is living and breathing. There is no afterlife. This is ongoing. Like, it's still a part of the trajectory. Like, just because we call it capitalism now doesn't mean it's still not colonialism. So all these things do like affect each of these different communities in different ways. And we have to be able to find the language that ties it all together.
Yeah. You hear all the different law enforcement groups that are involved in Washington, D.C. since Monday. There's like 6 or 7 different federal level things.
Yeah, I like the statement that you made about colonialism, because I feel like that might actually be something that might be playing against us, which is with this construct of color and colorism that we have within our society and in our Latinx societies and actually across the world. I think colorism has become such a significant tool to keep us separated.
Yeah.
And that might be the piece that we really need to kind of work on to come together, because it exists in all our cultures.
Absolutely.
And to your point, it's like, it's a particular type of psychic impact that it's having on people. The fact that we still have people who are lightening their skin with skin lightening creams to this day. That's not historical. That's contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a thought that I want to just throw out to everybody. So, because when I hear all of the information that we're getting today, and grateful that we have this live format to share, I always wonder if they've got us so busy trying to sort it out that that's another form of this colonial, imperial, capitalist model to keep us chasing our tails and trying to figure out what's going on and trying to assess it and name it. Meanwhile, we need to just be collaborating, working together. We humans, like when we were little children, we didn't care what anybody looked like. We had a friend to play with on the playground in the park, and we just went for it. And our parents had to peel us apart to send us home. Now, all of a sudden, we can't get along. What happened? A couple of years have gone by, and we learned a bunch of bad habits and a bunch of bad thinking. But they're counting on us sitting around trying to figure it out and sort it out. And then all they have to do is throw a little wrench in the process. And then we get all focused on that and we keep redirecting our energy. And then we bump ahead with another one. And now we're arguing with each other. And then they send out us a little thing about colorism. And then we start chasing that. But what would happen if we put all that down and just really locked arms in solidarity, started helping each other out? When we see some police doing brutality, then that's when we need to, like that neighborhood watch concept where we call people and then we have everybody standing down there with, 25 people watching you. Now do it. And that if we know somebody's experiencing domestic violence, then we all step in, because we're still counting on some system to make decisions for us, to help us. We're giving our decision-making power to people who don't even know how to, frankly, this is crude, but wipe their own behinds. And now we're trusting them and we are the ones with the knowledge. And there's so many more people like us, and it doesn't necessarily mean a degree. We get it. We know how to live. And watch this, our bodies know how to survive. So this idea of hoarding toilet paper and I got to survive over you, your heart will pump. It doesn't need your help. Your lungs will breathe. It doesn't need your help. So our bodies are designed to automatically take care of us. So the only thing we should be doing is caring about each other, and we should just do it. I don't need permission to help somebody out. I don't need permission to support you. I don't need permission to have your back. I don't need permission to be grateful. I don't need permission to be loving. I can just do it. And guess what? When I'm doing all the positive things, my body rejuvenates itself. It's all this negativity that's sucking the life out of us. It's burning us out. Where, we're in quarantine. We can't figure out what day it is, even though we just looked at the calendar. We're on these Zoom calls trying to figure it out. And meanwhile, they're probably just laughing, going, we got them again. So we got to just rise above it. We got to work together. We have to have more of these group talks like this, because as soon as I talk to every one of you, I'm like, it's like my own brain's talking. It's like I'm talking to myself, because I'm hearing from you exactly what I feel. So who is the problem? That's who we need to distance ourselves from, the people who are the problems. And I keep saying on our listserv and Scrab, racism ends 2020. And I mean by that as far as I'm concerned, I'm giving these crazy racist people another couple of months till December 31st, okay? Just as a courtesy. And then you can keep on being racist, but I'm not doing it anymore, because I'm gonna use my energy to get in solidarity and to work together. I am so done. And then, the who suffered more, like the other group was saying, you know what, you guys, we just got to draw a line in the sand and move forward, and then we can sort out who suffered more down the road when we're all getting along. But right now, it's just another point of contention, and we're never going to get out of this if we don't make it happen now. And we all know protests and stuff get attention, but the reason why all of that, our statements and everything aren't working, is because we're still asking somebody else for permission to end this. So we end it now. We end it right now. And then we talk to all of our friends today and tomorrow, and we get together and we end it. We got this amazing technology. We can talk to people all over the world any time of day. So let's just end it and stop and then use our psychology and our skills to then do the healing part, because that's where the real work's going to be, not in trying to figure this garbage out, because it's all a lie anyway, but trying to heal, because we are all so broken and wounded. But we're also resilient, right?
We are.
Right?
We all, which is why we're here. Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Perkins. And so a couple of things before we end. We want to thanks to everyone for being as open and transparent and participating in this kind of after discussion from the last panel. Celeste asked, how can we continue these discussions? And so we need to figure out a way to continue these in more than the conference fashion, right, that we've created today, so that this can occur, or direct actions. I mean, in whatever ways we create that.